Hello everybody and welcome back to another YI video, and as you can probably tell from the thumbnail of this one isn't going to be a positive one, just like my last YI video. I don't really like making the negative YIs, though they certainly do obviously generate a bit more interest, let's say, in certain aspects. But we're looking at Dragon Age the Veilguard, and it's a game that I was very kindly gifted by a viewer. Once again, Devon, thank you very much. For allowing me to experience Veilguard and just everything that Bioware is not supposed to be, what it is as far as their legacy goes, let's say. This is, in the shorthand, if you just wanted to get a quick view and then just leave it there, rather than going through what would be a comparatively lengthy rant about the title, is no, don't buy it. It's awful, basically. But let's try to go more in depth on that. So, Dragon Age Veilguard is supposed to be the direct continuation of Dragon Age Inquisition, which was relatively well received. It had a few warts here and there, but overall, game was pretty fun. People enjoyed it. Myself and my background in Dragon Age, I've played all of the major games, including its expansions. Quite like the first game, really like the expansion to the first game. I didn't mind the second one, warts and all, and yeah, Inquisition I felt was a bit of a slog, but I enjoyed it for the most part. But the nice thing about the games is that there was the consistent dark tone, the feeling that characters were a little bit more sort of well-rounded, and they fit into a kind of dark fantasy universe. Dragon Age Veilguard is kind of the antithesis of its own setting. It's like a shorthand version of it. I think you could describe it as like the Vampire Diaries in its tone and style. Sometimes it gets a bit dark, but for the most part it's like young adult. The whole thing just feels like you could just be watching any generic fantasy universe setting with a bunch of characters who are not really offensive in any particular way, and they're not going to cause anyone to be sort of annoyed or upset or anything like that. They're just, the characters are just there. The basic plot of this one is that the land of Thedas is under threat because two ancient elven gods have returned in the form of Elganan and Gillenane, and you will hear those names a lot. If anyone's a fan of the likes of, say, Angry Joe and such, will have probably long since seen his review of, oh, we have to go and fight the elven gods of Elganan and Gillenane. It's not over-exaggeration. They love to say the names. It's like whoever came up with them was like, I have hit on the best elven-sounding names ever. No one ever beat this. Fuck you, Arwen, and Elrond and all that, and Gilgalad and all that. No, we've got Elganan and Gillenane, and it just they love to say it. But the thing is, as villains, they're largely non-personas. That they don't really play a huge part in the plot because they're just sort of out there doing bad things, and when you do see them, they're usually in cutscenes where you have very little impact, and then yeah, there's the perfunctory boss fights against them, which when I get to the combat in a bit will just be like any other part of the game. There's no unique mechanics or elements, whereas say previous Dragon Age titles obviously had a much more RPG style to them, and the way that enemies could have unique abilities or skills, or your character would have to, be geared up correctly, or you'd have to have your party composition set up to better counteract some of these strengths. Every enemy in the game is largely the same. It's just a different flavor of enemy. It's like they have a different skin, basically. The world setting is okay. You jump between a bunch of places. So unlike where Inquisition obviously went with the very large open maps, this game does not. This game is a lot of these kind of zones like you're seeing here, these sort of interconnected areas that will start off relatively linear, and they'll open up a bit. You can unlock a few different bits and pieces. Your character can't swim, for instance. You just get warped back to a location unless it bugs out and you just keep respawning and falling into the water, and you have to reload a save or quick travel to a one of these pylons that you see here that allow you to fast travel around the map. But there isn't a lot to do in these places. You mainly just run around them and you grab like the odd resource here and there, or you pick up a chest. The place is littered. Everywhere is littered with chests. They have all kinds of. Most of the chests just have crap in them. They're also very God of War in the style that they get open, kicking it open, catching a thing, and then it's like, oh look, you've got a piece of armor, but this one has like a slightly different. But you always just take the green arrows. If they point up, it's better. You equip it if it's for your character. Classes. So when you make your character, you get 3 classes to choose from, which is your sword and board, your mage, or your roguey type. I went with the rogue in this one, dual wielding swashbuckler with a bow. I honestly didn't feel any class was like unique in the sense of they really sort of would dynamically change the way that you played the whole game. It's not like Baldur's Gate, where playing as a spellcaster compared to, say, playing as a fighter or playing as a rogue or a monk or something like that would completely change the way that you approach some of the scenarios in that game, for instance, or any CRPG, where some encounters are going to be easy because your class is geared and already kind of has a major advantage against it, and other times it's a little tougher because that enemy is much better at countering a spellcasting class, that kind of thing. Nope, in this game they all are largely the same thing. You just hammer the left mouse or the controller to just spam your attacks, and then you press a button to dodge, which you have an infinite amount of dodging. And when you see a yellow line above your head, you press a button to deflect that attack if you're a melee class, or you create a shield, and they get staggered, and then you hit them more, and then they die, and you rinse repeat, and that's it. Yeah, your classes don't really specialize. There's no subclasses or advanced classes. As you level up, there's just, again, 3 variants within that class. The rogue that I played through could have one that I went with that could do things like throw an auto turret that fired bolts of well, not even magical, just like bolts at enemies, like a crossbow turret, and I could throw bombs and stuff like that worked like proximity mines, and they would just send enemies flying across the screen, and it was very silly. But yeah, that goes into the character create. There was a lot of guff about character creation, how it's in depth and it's really amazing, and I haven't seen a better character create. There have been so many better character creation suites in older games compared to this one. Creating characters in Veilguard is pretty limited, in my opinion. You can't really do a hell of a lot. I mean, sure, you can just pull all the sliders to one side or the other, and you can make some monstrosities like you can in any game, but you can't really make any kind of really nuanced, interesting, unique, like truly unique looking characters, even compared to previous Dragon Age games. But again, going to its contemporaries, being able to make a character in Baldur's Gate, or any like Dragon's Dogma, for instance. Dragon's Dogma 2 has a much better character creator than this game has. And when it comes to things like physical assets, which has been highlighted, you could never make a character that was a busty blonde, for instance, or someone who's got a fat ass that jiggles as you run. You aren't allowed to do that. That's not in their game world. You can't have a voluptuous woman as much as you can't really have a particularly buff guy who's like a space marine in his character build. No, you're not allowed to do that. You have these pre-prescribed. If you pull the bar all the way over here, they will be this muscular, or they will be slightly less muscular if it's a male, or they will be this kind of generic flat-bodied woman, and that's it. That's all you get. So the character creator is incredibly limited. There was a lot of stuff. There was a lot of stuff made about the trans character representation and like surgical scars and stuff. And yeah, they're an option there, but honestly, it doesn't play a big part. I made the character that you can see on the screen now to the left, the one wearing the spiky shoulder pads. That's the character I made. Trans woman doesn't like the impact on the story is virtually nil. Because hey, let's talk about romances. Romances in Bioware games were always one of the key things. Let's face it, when we were all younger and we played some of these games, we'd play them for a little bit of tits and a little bit of ass. Let's not lie about it. We all wanted to see Liara's boobs, for instance, in Mass Effect. Or we wanted to get into Ashley's pants, or whatever in Mass Effect. We wanted to do those kind of things. In Dragon Age, everyone wanted to see Morrigan's tits. Well, tough tits. You're not seeing any of that in this game. This game does not have... There's no titillation. There's none of that kind of thing. Romances are awful. I, just for the hell of it, had my character go into a relationship with the necromancer guy, who is the least necromancer type person I've ever seen in a game. He's so like nice and jovial and gentlemanly and all the rest. I thought this is such a crazy juxtaposition, and you don't even Here's the weird thing: any point in the game, you can go to a mirror and you can just see your character naked. You like, all right, you don't see any, you don't see much actual kind of nudity. You get topless. But when it comes to the romance scenes, there's none of it. There's absolutely zero. It's so strange why they would even bother to do it in that case. Why bother allowing you to see your character's bare chest if they weren't even going to bother to go through what is tradition, at this point a tradition in Bioware games, which was to see the characters at least post-coitus or getting it on a little bit, a little bit of foreplay beforehand. But no, that is just not a thing. So you can't even see any of the party members naked if that's what you liked about Bioware games. That's done. It's gone. So that was just kind of odd and amusing at the same time. And the party members themselves, they're just, as I said, they're like a young adult novel. It's like being into a mid-season of something like the Vampire Diaries. Everyone's got their trauma, everyone's got something about them that only you can help them to work through. They're completely... every character is a perfectly smooth stone. There's no edges on it. You can't hurt yourself on them. They are completely inoffensive. They are people who have been filed and sanded and polished to a point where it's that they have just the blandest personality, so that there's no sort of chance for conflict. There's no chance for your character to be opposed to a party member in their views. Where you would have this in a lot of RPG games where some characters have opinions that you don't agree with, and that's that can sort of tailor your view of that character, and you might not want to take them with you on some of the quests, because it's like, well, I don't like this person because they believe in like such and such an act, or they're a strong supporter of this, and I don't agree with that. But no, all the characters in this are just almost completely accepting of the group's larger view on things, and especially your main characters. And they will just go along with everything, and the only thing they need help with is just some light counselling on your behalf there, and you'll make everything better, because you can't see the best ending to the game unless everyone's sort of worked through their issues. If you haven't become friends with them all and sort of sorted out some play dates with the rest of the group and all the rest of it, they'll all just die in the end cutscene, which I suppose is supposed to evoke Mass Effect 2's suicide mission if you got the setup wrong or whatever, but it really doesn't. No one cares. There's no weight to any of these characters. They're all largely forgettable. Out of the ones I can still remember the names of, but like Balara, the elf adventurer, the elf. God, is she now? She's the female elf girl who has an impossible hairstyle. How her hair stays the way it does I don't know, must be elven magics, but her character is so preppy and upbeat, and she has such a modern way of speaking about everything. It just completely goes against everything with the setting. But she's not an interesting character. She's not fun. She's not even amusing or entertaining with her sort of quirky sort of. She's a geek. She's a nerd. She's written to be like a nerdy character in any of these kinds of. Have you ever seen like CSI or NCIS or any of those things? And they have the techie, the nerd one who's into the alternative stuff that the rest of the characters sometimes like look at each other going, I don't know, computers, right? She's like that. She's written like one of those characters. So there's just she's just a one-note gag character. She's like, oh, I'm talking too much. Oh, I'm really sorry. Blah blah blah. You know, I'll be quiet now. And it's supposed to, it's endearing, but it's not. It's just annoying. Harding, who is a character who was from Inquisition, is again largely inoffensive. She's the dwarven sort of. Is she a rogue? I guess. Yeah, I guess she's the same. She's like a dwarven rogue character. She has her own plotline to do with awakening ancient dwarven blood that allows her to manipulate stone, because every character has some ability to interact with the environment for a very limited selection of puzzles. Harding, again, is just an uninteresting character, one that you don't really care about all that much. Her story is largely boring. Davrin, the Grey Warden, obviously the original heroes of the entire series, the characters who I always thought, to be honest, that the games would all focus around would be the adventures of the Grey Wardens and what they're trying to achieve. No, it turns out that the actual the Grey Warden character is just kind of bland. He's got a pet baby griffin, and he's got he's got a grudge against some monster that used to be an elf who was, I don't know, they stole the baby griffins, they stole the other baby griffins, and now you go try and get the baby griffins back. That's his story. That's it. There's the spellcaster woman, I forget her name. She's smug and arrogant the whole way through. She's really boring. You've got, as I said, the necromancer guy, who's basically like the school of necromancy in this is just Hogwarts for undead people, for the undead lovers. And then you've got the world's greatest assassin who loves coffee. Who obviously, you say he's the world's greatest assassin, you take him with you, and obviously he just fights like any other character. He doesn't have any kind of like special abilities to assassinate an enemy or any of that kind of shit. He's just suave, like Latino man, yeah. Who has he's a tortured soul because he's got a demon inside him, and sometimes the demon wants out, and sometimes the demon wants to talk to you, and that's it. That's about as much as it sort of develops, and at some point they just become friends, because that's how that works with possession. You just become friends with the monster that's inhabiting your soul, and together you can overcome anything. I'm not taking the piss. Literally, you just get him to have a conversation with, I think it's called Spite, and that's it. It's just that then they work together, and that's it. The problem solved. Thank God for your character turning up to deliver this news, this fantastic information to him, or else he would never have guessed. He'd never have figured out how to fix the problem. And finally, you have Tash. Everyone knows Tash. Tash is the worst character. Tash is the self-insert by one of the writers. Tash is the one that you've seen all the clips of the grey-skinned woman sitting down going, so I'm non-binary. And it is every bit as bad as you imagine. The character is the worst written character in the whole game. She's even less interesting. She has less of a personality than most of the other characters. Her story is even more boring and uninteresting. It's just her having issues with her mum, and whether people misgender her, and that's it. She's like, the character has nothing else, and that's the problem. Every single party member is a fucking bore. They are the worst. You don't want... Even if they did have tits and ass in this game, you wouldn't want to get to know these characters. You would be so bored of them that it isn't a meme of people online at the moment talking about how they want the characters to die, because honestly, you will want to see them die. There's no feeling of loss here. It's just miserable and boring. Quite the setup. Oh, every villain, by the way, every just bad guy outside of a named one, they all wear masks. They all look like this guy with the red hood on him. There's no other, like, interesting character design. Every enemy is part of a generic faction that all wear masks or helmets, so they didn't have to, you know, make a bunch of generic NPC heads for people you were fighting. Enemies in combat come in a few flavors. There's your standard fighter enemy. There's your assassin enemy who fights like a ninja with a pair of kamas, the sort of mini hand scythes. There's always a spellcasting enemy, and then there'll be like a big, like a heavy unit of each faction, like a blood golem or golem, and like a big like brutish monster one or something like that, and that's it. That's all it is. All the factions are just kind of the same thing in different skins. And combat, it boils down literally to left click, hold down left mouse. Occasionally you want to do a right mouse button ability. Every class has a different thing. The ranger class will use their bow. I believe the warrior will do a special attack with their currently selected weapon. And the mage, I think, does like a sort of big AoE attack, if I remember correctly. I didn't play the mage, but I think from other footage I saw, that's what happens with them. And that is literally it. You just dodge, roll, and attack. It's like if Dark Souls was just boiled down to its absolute bare bones basics. Party members that you can see, who will be flinging in spells and the such, do so little damage, despite the fact that you'll have them equipped with the absolute best stuff that you've found. They are completely perfunctory, and the reason for that is because the game was originally supposed to be a cooperative multiplayer game, where it was going to be 3 players travelling around together, doing quests in the world of Dragon Age, but obviously that got shelved. It turned into a single player game, and then they couldn't rebalance the... oh yeah, there's my ultimate ability, where I pull out a weird looking super soaker and just start firing rockets. Yeah, I forgot to mention that, yeah. That's your character's ultimate attack for that particular specialization. It's just one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. But yeah, combat does literally just boil down to just holding the left mouse button for charged attacks and spamming left mouse. When Dynasty Warriors has more nuance to its combat, that's where you know you've fucked up. There is no reward. There is no sense that you have overcome a challenge when you win a battle. It's just the same thing over and over again, and by the 20th hour, the 30th hour, the 40th hour of running around the same maps over and over again, because the quests always just want you to go to the same locations, to press E on a thing, to read a note, or talk to a generic NPC, to then do something else. It's just the same shit, different day. And all the locations just become uninteresting because there's very few, if any, random encounters with them. There's no surprise elements. You can't discover a side quest, but as you're exploring, you can't find sort of unique loot like that. Everything is kind of just set out for you to find. It's just, oh, you've unlocked this party member, they have an ability that can alter the environment in this way, which now means you can go to this bit. Oh, there's a chest, the chest contains a new hat, or the chest contains a new sword that this NPC can use, or your character can equip, and there you go. If you like dress up, if you want to have your character look as cool as possible, this game does at least have a lot of different armor sets. There is a hell of a lot of different style of armor and weight of equipment, so light, medium, and heavy armors, for instance, and different robes and stuff. So yeah, and it has that function where you can transmorph a piece of equipment to look like another one. So if there's a set of armor that you've always liked the appearance of, but you don't necessarily want to lose but you want the better stats, you can do that if you want. So you can make your character look kind of cool, with like an awesome looking helmet and stuff like that. But yeah, outside of the dress up side of it, it doesn't really mean much. The stats are all perfunctory. You just want the numbers to go up. There's like more armor has to provide more health and more defense. Weapons just have to do more base damage, and that's kind of it, because the other stats don't mean anything. They don't improve that much. You're just pushing up base damage and increasing your maximum health, and as long as you're doing those two things, you don't really have to worry about much else. Dialogue. The dialogue wheel. Obviously it's a staple of the Bioware sort of engine, and obviously nearly every game has had this dialogue system, but it's one of those frustrating dialogue systems where most of the time the thing that is written for your choice is not what your character says, and your character is fully voiced, so they will not say exactly what is there every time, and that can be extremely frustrating because it's not what you thought you were choosing, and that can be very frustrating and very misleading. And you can't. You end up in a situation where a lot of the time you can't respond in the way that you want either. You can't tell a character who's being a dickhead that they're a dickhead. It's just not possible. Your character is just so diplomatic about everything. I mean, the character will sometimes play. That's the other thing. Expressions. Characters have a very limited range of expression. It's sort of like deadpan, sort of smiling, and who farted in the lift. That is it. That's most of the settings of the character's expressions. So there's not really any kind of expressionism in the sense of being able to really properly put forward the emotional aspect of what the character is currently engaging in. They could be talking about how all of their friends have just died at some fortress that's been attacked by one of the elven gods, and they've got the same generic face that they had on them when they were talking about how one of the fellow Veilguard has upset them because they ate all of the cheese. It's the same thing. There's no difference between them. They just have this one set of animations. And don't be fooled by the footage. It looks pretty for the most part. Like, the graphics are fine, and technically the game runs well, but the characters and everything, it's all a bit like, why has my character got that expression on her face? It just doesn't make sense. You get a lot of these things, divergent path of discussion. Most of what you choose as a response means nothing. Your character will not have any major impact on your party members' development as a person. You will not be able to say, send Harding down a darker path, or keep them on a more light side of things, let's say. They will always just be the same. It doesn't matter. All you're doing is you're just pushing an invisible XP bar up, basically. And if you get that XP bar to maximum, they become a Veilguard. And a Veilguard is just the character with, I think, a unique set of gear, I think it is, and they might have a new special ability, and that is it. Because your NPC companions can level up, and they can get buffs and stuff, but it doesn't mean anything, because as I said, their damage is virtually nothing. Like, compared to what you do, you hit an enemy and you're doing like 6,000 damage, and they're hitting them and doing 38. That is how bad it is. I wish I was taking the piss, but it really is. They are there to just occasionally take a hit for you, and that's it. They can't die. They can't do much. The best thing that you keep them around for, sorry if you're hearing us, I'm just readjusting the mic. The best thing that you keep them around for is they can heal you. You just basically press a button and tell them to throw a healing potion your way, and that is it. And that if it wasn't for the fact that they could do that, you could just solo the whole game. You may as well. God. Yeah, the dialogue trees. What else are we going through? Because it's all bad. It is all bad. The story is naff. The moment to moment combat is it starts out that it might be interesting. There could be something there, but ultimately it's just bad. There's no fun things to discover. There's no challenging bosses. Cameos from previous games' characters are all just they're just nostalgia baiting. They're just trying to get you to go, oh, I remember that person. Oh, they were great in the previous game that I really enjoyed, or whatever else, because in this game they suck. Oh yeah, the Inquisitor can turn up in this game, and you have to design the Inquisitor again. But the problem is it's using this game's character create, so it because of the 10-year time gap, obviously, the game doesn't have a means, even if you have an Inquisition save file, it doesn't read that and like recreate your character from Inquisition in this game. You have to completely redesign your character. It doesn't look the same. It doesn't sound the same because they get a voice actor. It's really bad.
Another candle.
Oh yeah. So obviously a big thing about Dragon Age games and Mass Effect and like Jade Empire and stuff like that, and Knights of the Republic, has always been light and dark, or Paragon and Renegade, that kind of thing. This game doesn't have any of that. There's no ability to have your character just be like a hard-bitten loner, or if you want your character to just be like a complete asshole mercenary who's just you'll just work for whoever's going to pay you the most money, or you being a goody two-shoes, or completely evil. You can't be any of these things. Your character is preset from the start. Your character will always be the one who is going to fight the good fight to defeat the elven gods, and your character will always be the one who will have your party members' backs regardless of what the challenges may be ahead, and that is it. There is no other option. Your character will always be the same thing, and it fucking sucks. So yeah, you can't tell an NPC that they're just being a whiny bastard and that maybe they're right to have been, like robbed of something because they made a dumb decision. You can't tell Tash to go fuck herself because she's just a mopey fucking teenager the whole time. You can't decide to betray any of the characters. You can't work with Elganon and Gillenane. You can't do anything interesting. You can't have a character who's shades of grey where you may side with one faction and sympathise with them, but fuck another one over entirely. That's not an option in this game. You are just whatever the writer and director decided you were going to be. And unfortunately, that is a very, very bland young adult novel character that has very little to them outside of their motivation to stop the bad guys. And there is no element in between that will stop it. It is boring. It is, and this is why I cannot possibly fathom why it is anyone would want to play Dragon Age the Veilguard. It's a big ass fucking download. It's asking a lot of money for a game that will no doubt go on sale. As recent information, the director of the game has left the company after, I think it was like more than a decade of working there. We're in a scenario where I wouldn't be surprised after a time if the studio, or the part of the studio that worked on this, starts getting shuffled around or even possibly shut down, because there's no way this game is turning a profit. I would not recommend buying this game. I would not recommend getting this game on anything other than the biggest sale, and only then if you want to experience this game in the same way that you watch a So Bad It's Good movie. But just be prepared that if you do that, it's a big time investment. on your part. This isn't a game that you're going to get done in a couple of sittings. There is a lot that you have to run through. There's a lot of dialogue, boring dialogue that doesn't go anywhere, doesn't mean anything. There's no interesting side quests. You will go to the same locations repeatedly to do the same tasks over and over again. There is no character development. Most of the game is either just fast traveling between points or running around like this. There is no ability for you to make any truly memorable changes to the environment. In this bit, some of this city that I'm running around is a little bit damaged, whereas a different city could have been a little bit damaged. That was the only major choice I got to make in the entire thing, because that is it. It is bland. You can't even actually fail the story. Even if you take all the wrong decisions and the party members get killed and all the rest of it, the bad guys will still be beaten. It just has a slightly different cutscene is all, and that's it. It's just, there's not even really any there's not even any lasting consequences. That's the problem, is the whole game has none of that, and it's just a huge waste of time. Oh look, it's the big enemy that that faction has. It looks like it looks like a prism on legs. It's really stupid looking. It's like, fear of our ultimate weapon, it will destroy you, and it just sort of awkwardly stomps around and then tries to shoot a beam at you, which is very easy to dodge, of course, because everything's very easy to dodge. And even taking damage doesn't matter, because you could just spam health potions like it's going out of business, and you max heal as soon as you use the health potion. Oh look, it's defeated. Oh, there you go. Oh, bonk. Yeah, those enemies are few and far between. Most of the time you're just whacking mages in the face. Oh, there's Tash with her dual axes that she doesn't hit very hard with. I just ramble about it. Yeah, it's just naff. The whole game is naff, and there's nothing at all. There's no way of fixing it. They're not going to correct this, right the ship. They're not going to try and make any improvements. They're not going to take feedback. This is it. This is all you get. So yeah, I feel sorry for anyone who is a major Dragon Age fan, because yeah, I totally get why this is not what people wanted for the series, and yeah, other than that, it's just I think kind of the end of Bioware, as far as RPGs are concerned. I don't know how you bounce back from this, because they've sunk so low, and there's no redeeming elements to this game. There's literally nothing to redeem it. There's no reason to play it. There's no reason to come back to it. There's no DLC in the works, so as far as story stuff is concerned, none of that's happening. It's done. This is it. This is the end of Dragon Age. So if you like the first game, this is where that story that started all those years ago, is where it ends up. Yeah, that's just that. So I'll leave it there. I have a brew. I have a brew to drink, and little kittens to go pet and feed and socialise with. So have a good one all. Thanks for sticking with us on this one, and I will catch you all on the next YI or Law Warrior, whatever that may be. Until then, have a good week. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye. It's not turned off. Why isn't it stopped? It's supposed to stop the recording.